Hello, my people out there. This is Jessica with Beta Virtual Assistants. It is Thursday, and I have fixed my backdrop so it looks just a tiny bit better. One of the mirrors smashed the other day, so we had to replace them. But that is enough about me today. Today, I thought I would talk a little bit about the whole Celsius situation. If you are a crypto investor who has put money into Celsius, and you need to make a decision by tomorrow on whether or not you're going to accept this deal that they're proposing, I thought we could just talk just a little bit about it today. So if you had money in Celsius, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. And number one is if you haven't been reporting crypto taxes on stuff and you have money in Celsius, you've just been outed. Or maybe not just been outed, but in any case, you are on a list somewhere and the government might come after you and say, hey, you know that whole question that on your taxes, especially if you're a USA tax investor, the first question on your taxes is, have you purchased or sold or received crypto for anything? And guess what? Anyone who had money in Celsius that was earning money was receiving crypto that should have been reported on their taxes. So if you have been answering no to that question, you'd better start rethinking your strategy. If you have not been reporting crypto taxes, definitely want to get your ducks in a row so that you are ready. And I would recommend speaking to someone if you're in that sort of situation, especially if the crypto came from somewhere else. There are plenty of investors out there who did invest in something and then they come to Celsius to earn more money on their earnings, because at that point, Celsius was promising that they would pay interest on your coins that you had in there. There were also ways to borrow against your holdings and all that sort of thing. So there were definitely a lot of people who sent crypto to Celsius either to make money from interest in things or to borrow against it. Because as I talked about a couple weeks ago now, if you have a crypto coin that has gone up significantly in value and you don't want to pay taxes on it yet, one way you can get around that is by borrowing against the value of it. So instead of using your $30,000 of Bitcoin and selling it and having to pay taxes because you bought that Bitcoin at like $1,000, instead you would take that $30,000, pledge it as collateral, and then borrow like, say, half of it. Now you've got $15,000 to play with that you didn't have to pay taxes on, and so you can use that to grow your money more, hopefully. And don't be like those investors who took out money and then they lost the money. So that's not such a good thing. But in any case, if you are somebody who got into crypto and you have moved assets into Celsius and you haven't been reporting, now is the time to start getting on top of that and to figure out your strategy about what you're going to do. And what we recommend around here is you get all of your transactions from your entire history reported and make sure that it's all squared away so that if they should ever get interested in you because you're on a list of Celsius people and you've never reported crypto taxes, they're going to come after you and potentially cause a lot of problems. If you've been lying directly on those tax forms, I think there's big penalties, there's threat of jail time, there's all this sort of thing. So you definitely don't want that. And then on top of that, if they figure out that you owe money because you had capital gains before that you didn't report and then you need to pay it, they're going to probably want to charge you interest on that money since whenever that money started accumulating. That could be a very unhappy situation. So we are always telling our clients, and especially our clients who are not super excited about sharing everything that they've been doing, because some of our clients have done really well. They have put money into DeFi protocols, and of course there's those of you out there who think, oh, well, if it's in a DeFi protocol, nobody's gonna know. It's decentralized. It's not like Celsius. Celsius is a centralized exchange. If you're in Celsius and it runs into trouble and the government comes along and says, hand over your list of customers, guess what? Celsius had to do it. And so that is why everyone knows who the Celsius customers are. So definitely being part of a centralized exchange, not an anonymous activity. It could get you in trouble if you're not reporting it. Number two, people think if they're in decentralized finance that it's also anonymous. But the thing is, if you get connected to an address that sent money into Celsius and they say, oh, Jessica sent money into Celsius from this address. We follow this address back. This is interesting. And pretty soon they can create a paper trail through cyberspace of your addresses and figure out what you did. Just like a couple months ago, I was working on several different clients who had forgotten everything they'd done. And we were trying to figure out, because I like to have the taxes that I do for people, I want to make sure they're as complete as possible. And I want to make sure if I can find it, I'm going to record every single address they've been at. And there are a couple of clients we've had who did not know or remember that they had as many addresses as they did. And what I did was I dug through the blockchain and I followed the trail. And I would say, oh, it's interesting. Like there was this one guy, his Bitcoin split into two and then split in two from each of those. And then they started meeting up on the other end and then they come out the other side. And it's supposed to be, some people do that for privacy reasons, like kind of like using a mixer or those things that are kind of frowned on by the US government if you're using them, like Tornado Cash, that are supposed to be hiding your activity. A lot of people do it so that they can hide from the government and what they're doing so they don't get charged taxes like they should and all that sort of thing. And I think that's kind of dangerous because if you are half as clever as me, you can figure this out. You can go onto the blockchain and you can follow the little trail around. And if the wrong person does that and you haven't reported it and then you get in trouble, I would hate to see that happen. Which is why I won't let that happen to any of my clients. So if you want to hide your crypto activity and you want help with your crypto taxes, I'm probably the wrong person to talk to because I'm going to ask lots of questions. I'm going to say, where did this come from and where did that go to? And we've got to have the story correct in your taxes. This can be really reassuring if you're my ideal client, which is the kind of person who wants to follow the law, wants to do their responsible due diligence as a citizen and report what they're supposed to, but they don't want to pay more taxes than they need to. And that's where we excel. So we can help you figure out how to optimize your holdings so that you can still pay a minimum of tax while still being legal, so that if they come after you, and maybe they won't always like all of our answers, and they might at some point change the rules. And they might decide that money you got back from a certain protocol should have been reported as income, and we said it was a return of capital. And we have our reasons. We would not say that for no reason, but if they don't want to accept those reasons and you get in trouble, well, you only get in trouble for that little portion that we got wrong and not for the whole thing because you refused to pay attention to the problem or you didn't want to deal with it or anything like that. So, something to keep in mind. Back to the Celsius situation. So they are having this vote tomorrow. The responses are due tomorrow. I think it's at 4 p.m. Eastern that you need to turn in your ballot. And what they're asking everybody to do is, number one, decide if you're going to try to get as much crypto back as possible or if you're willing to take shares in place. They're creating a new company that's going to be hosting the mining operations of Celsius. And I think it will get listed on the stock exchange. And with any luck, in a few years' time, the value of the company's shares, hopefully, will go up in value. And so their proposal is, hey, we don't have all the crypto right now to return your money to you. Guess what? So sorry, we didn't have all the crypto in the first place that you deposited with us. We were using it for other things, kind of like FTX was. So we can't give you all the crypto back, but we can give you some of the crypto and then we can give you some of this stock, and hopefully over time the value of the stock will go up and da 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 da. So that's one of the questions you have to answer when you're filling out the ballot is, you know, do you want to lean towards crypto or are you okay with a bigger portion of the stock or whatever like that? The rest of the ballot is mostly if you want to opt out, if you want to go sue Celsius on your own, which I think you need to hire a lawyer, you need to pay lots of fees, and there's all kinds of complications. And personally, that sounds too scary to me and like a big time drag. So I'm not going to do that for my little tiny Celsius claim. I did fill out my ballot on Monday and I said, yeah, I actually didn't get to vote for whether I wanted more stock or more crypto. It had already been filled out for me. And that's possibly because I might have filled out something earlier in the system. I don't remember. I do remember filling something out, and it's possible that my claim is so small that they're not letting me decide. Who knows? I did vote my thing though, and most of them is like, do you want to opt out because you want to sue Celsius on your own? And I'm like, no, thank you. No, I really don't. So I did get mine filed. There is a great video out there by Aaron Bennett if you're interested in exactly how to do it. He takes you through each thing, and so I don't need to do that. You can figure it out or look up his video. The other videos I've been watching this week have been by Simon Dixon. And wow, interesting guy. I did not know who Simon Dixon was. I think I have watched a couple of his videos in the past couple weeks, just because he's one of the important people who are talking about this. He is presenting himself as an expert, and he is like going through everything and showing all the sides of the story that he knows about. And the videos were actually really interesting. Turns out he had a lot of stuff invested and sitting in Celsius that he is now losing access to. So he's, I think, one of the top 10 creditors in Celsius or something like that, which is crazy. Interesting, though, if you want to learn more about the whole situation, about some of the tax implications, I do think, this is my personal opinion, and this is what I am recommending to our clients, is that we probably are going to treat the return of the crypto that you get as a return of your crypto, and therefore non-taxable. It's kind of like a return of capital. So if you put in 1 Bitcoin and you get back half a Bitcoin, that half a Bitcoin would be return of capital, and then it would keep moving along its journey until its final resting place, and then you would report the capital gains on that. But then the rest of the crypto that we're not getting back will have to be traded for shares in the new company. So I am sure they will tell us a value that the shares are worth when we receive them, and that is what the value will be that we will create the trade for. So really interesting situation, I think. And then there's the whole, if you had loans, I think if you have loans, you can opt to, those might be the people more likely to be able to opt in for more crypto, because there's so many tax consequences with that. People who are borrowing against their crypto probably have a lot of capital gains wrapped up in that crypto that they don't want to report. And so it's very beneficial for them if they can get more crypto than have it skew towards stock, because that's kind of a mess. So there's a whole thing you have to think about if you're going to repay your loans so that you get more of your crypto back so you don't have to report gains on it. And oh my gosh, that would get super complicated figuring out when does the gain of the crypto that got basically liquidated, what's the date that's going to be set on that? Oh my goodness. I hope nobody has that situation coming to me, because then I would have to figure out all this stuff. But if that is you, there's definitely some interesting points to consider in Simon Dixon's video, and also about who is running the company, who is proposed to run the company, things like that. What kind of a strategy you might consider if you are going to accept shares of stock, and are you going to try to sell them right away, or what? His videos are really in-depth, so go find them, go watch them. Other than that, definitely interesting times, as he says. It's kind of traditionally a curse. May you live to see interesting times. It's not always a good thing. But on the other hand, it is kind of interesting and exciting. So I'm kind of enjoying watching what happens from my little perch. I didn't have a lot of money invested, so I am not tying up my net worth and completely depressed about the situation. But there you go. So that is a little bit about the Celsius situation. If you haven't voted for your stuff or approved your stuff or whatever, get on that. It is due 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Make sure it gets done. Yeah, I definitely wanted to do it because I definitely want whatever I'm getting back. I hope I get something back because, as I've mentioned before, I did send the first Bitcoin that I bought. Basically, I was buying $10 a day in a company called Swan Bitcoin. And Swan Bitcoin is very Bitcoin maximalist, which means they emphasize that not your keys, not your crypto. They want you to keep your Bitcoin very safe by keeping it in a Bitcoin wallet, and do not send it to any centralized exchange or do anything else with it. Do not pass go. Bitcoin is the king. Bitcoin's going to make all this money in the future, and therefore you must hold on to all of it and be very safe with it. And I didn't listen, and I sent my Bitcoin to Celsius because Celsius said they would pay me a percentage of interest every month, and that sounded really appealing to me, to not only have the Bitcoin but to also get a little bit of a dividend, because I'm a huge fan of dividend stocks. It has been a huge portion of my financial success up until now in investments and things. I do trade stock options a lot. In fact, I was doing some today. It was fun. But in addition, definitely a big portion of our family finances is provided by dividend income, which means we have stocks that we bought a long time ago paying us money every quarter just for owning them. And so when you come up with a situation like that in crypto where it's like, ooh, you can have your Bitcoin and get interest. Ooh, this sounds really good to me. So I totally fell for it. Did not realize that Celsius was not the best company to invest with. Did not do due diligence on it, how safe they were as a company and what a crook the guy running it was. Did not know anything. So learned my lesson maybe halfway. Half of me is like, I never want to invest in crypto again because I don't have the time to do all the due diligence and find out all this stuff. And half of me is like, I'll just watch what everybody else is doing. And then if it looks good, I might join in. That's the easy way out. And I definitely am privileged to have that opportunity because I am working with enough people who are doing different things that I get to see these different things. So it's pretty cool. If you are a Celsius investor, I wish you all the luck in the world that you and I both get back as much of our crypto as we can and that the stock is actually worth something when it's time for us to sell. I hope, fingers crossed, all that stuff. And if you are not a Celsius investor, good for you for dodging that bullet. Hope you've dodged the other bullets that have been passing by this year or last year with FTX and the Luna crash and gosh, all the rug pulls and all the scams that we've got people in. Oh my gosh. So many opportunities to lose your money in crypto. And if you do lose money and you want to report it, oh, that was another thing with the Celsius thing that they're saying that it could be considered a theft loss because one of the executives just pleaded guilty to fraud charges. So what does that mean for the normal person though? And the normal US investor, if you want to report a theft loss, it has to be a percentage over your income already. So I know for me, it would... I do not have enough crypto for it to apply anyways, but I would have to have a lot of crypto to be able to claim anything on my taxes for a theft loss, but it could help in some certain situations if you have a low income, number one, and number two, if you had a big enough chunk in Celsius that you're not getting back, and then you could report that as a theft loss. So all interesting stuff, but probably enough chattering for me today because the longer I chatter, the longer the video is, and that's always sad. So we are here Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern talking about crypto taxes or any other situations we see coming up in the crypto investing world. We are here on Saturdays talking about investing and how to be safe and other things we find interesting. And we would love to hear your questions. If you could send in a message or come live and ask it, we would love to see it and answer it. And gosh, it would be kind of cool to be challenged on the spot to think of something to say. Ta-da! Other than that, I think that covers it for today. So we're going to sign off. All right.